What's up? This is 50 Cent. Press that like button up. If you think that Tony Khan treats his viewers like they're dummies,
I was the first one to call this out years ago. That con man gives you no explanation for feuds or storylines. Tony Khan man is very similar to that pastor from Don't Be a Menace. Don't ask, no questions, just give the money. That is Tony Khan man when it comes to being a boss and being a booker. He is the worst booker in the history of pro wrestling. Yes, he is the worst. Going back to the 70s, 80s, he's the worst booker of all time because he thinks you are dumb. He thinks you are stupid. He thinks you are not going to notice anything that he does. So here is my top 8 list of all the things where Tony Khan man, he gives you no explanation or reason on why he moved on. So reason number 1, let's talk about Jade Cargill and her multiple managers. So there was a point in time where Jade Cargill had 2 managers, Smart Mark Sterling and Stokely Halfway. Now, this chick, she moved away from Smart Mark Sterling and she moved to Stokely Halfway with no explanation. She just moved on to Stokely Halfway with no reason, no nothing. I'm like, hold on, how come you are not with Smart Mark Sterling? Let's talk more about Stokely Halfway. This is the same man who left NXT. Yeah, that did not age well, now did it? He's the worst manager in all Elite Fake Pro Wrestling. Nobody takes him seriously based on how the way con man books him. Keep in mind, he left because he did not want to manage Omos on the main roster. But look at what you are doing right now. This is an awful run. You are known from jumping to wrestler to wrestler to wrestler with no explanation, which means nobody takes you seriously as a manager. That's dumb. You can't do that. You can't go from client to client to client with no explanation on why did you move on to that client. What happened to your goddamn last client? So Jade Cargill, she moves on to Stokely Halfway, and then months later she leaves Stokely Halfway, and then she turns to the baddies, right? Remember, she had her own faction. So she moves away from Stokely Halfway with no explanation. So all of a sudden, Jade Cargill was talking for herself. She had no manager. She was by herself. And I'm like, hold on. You was just with Stokely Halfway. What the fuck is going on? It was you, Stokely, and super thick Kiara Hogan. Okay, what happened? I don't get it. That's called Tony Khan man 101. He thinks you are dumb. He thinks you don't care about trying to make things make sense. You don't gotta be a smart fan. It's all about common sense. I have common sense. Keep in mind, Stokely Hathaway was the last man who managed the Creed brothers. And now look where they at and look where he's at. Yeah, that did not age well. Now did it? Stokely Hathaway is the worst manager in all Elite Fake Pro Wrestling. I would not want to be seen with him if I was a fake pro wrestler on that roster. So what is reason number 7? Let's talk about the firm. Right on cue. Who was the manager of the firm? It was Stokely Hathaway. Right on cue. This was when he left Jade Cargill with no explanation. So he starts his own faction called the fucking firm. It was Big Cass. It was Ethan Page. I think it was the Gun Club. And then I think they had Big Cass and they had Lee Moriarty. So, okay, what happened to that faction? That group, they had a feud with MJF. Remember, they jumped Max and they turned on him. Okay, what happened? They dropped that whole entire story and they moved on and they broke up the firm. You see, this is why nobody takes you seriously, Stokely Hathaway. You are a joke. You are a joke manager. But this is what you get. This is what you get for leaving NXT when they did not want you to leave. Every year since he has left NXT, he has been a joke. He has been with so many people. Jade Cargill, Big Cass, Ethan Page, fucking Lee Moriarty, Chris Aslander. Okay, what the fuck is this? Nobody takes you seriously. You was with Max at first. What happened? You see, so what was the point of you leaving NXT? Because now you are a whore manager that nobody takes seriously. So let's move on to reason number 6. Let's talk about Chris Aslander. You see, now people are starting to wake up. So now, all of a sudden, Chris Aslander is now a good guy. Okay, why? How? Like what? Last time I checked, Chris Aslander was a heel with Stokely Halfway. Chris Aslander had a blood feud with her best friend, super thick Willow Nightingale. Okay, that was a hardcore feud. It was a heated feud. And now, all of a sudden, Chris Aslander has left Stokely Halfway with no explanation. Why? How is she a good guy? Dude, she was just a heel 2 weeks ago, right? She was a heel last month. So what the fuck? Your manager was Stokely Halfway. You two were an evil duo. And now, all of a sudden, he is trying to manage fucking Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn. Like how? You was just with Chris Aslander last month. And now she has left you? You were by yourself? Yeah, but when? When did Chris Aslander leave you? This was not on TV. When did she turn into a good guy? This is lazy. Tony Khan Man thinks you are a dumbass. So this is the timeline of Chris Aslander. So last month, she was in a feud with super thick Willow Nightingale as a heel. And now this month, she is in a feud with Sasha Banks, a girl who is a heel. So I'm guessing Chris Aslander is now a good guy who is by herself with no Stokely Halfway. Like I said, when did they break up? You see, that's stupid, that's lazy. If this was the World Wrestling Federation, we would call out Shawn Michaels. We would call out Triple H because this makes no sense. Okay, so reason number 5. How come PacMan left the Death Triangle? And why is he now in the BBC? How? Last year, him and Cesaro did not like each other. And now those guys are best friends? How? Last year, I think they were in fucking Blood and Guts. So I'm like, what the fuck is this? Huh? How come PacMan is now in the BBC when you gave us no explanation on why you are no longer with the motherfucking Lucha Bros? Those guys are a faction. Those guys are former champions. Those guys are former trios tag team champions. So I'm like, okay, that's a big deal, isn't it? Unless I'm crazy. That's a big deal. For you to leave those two guys to go with the BBC? When? How? You did not officially leave the Death Triangle. So how are you now a lackey for Dean Ambrose? Huh? That makes no fucking sense. PacMan was the leader of the Death Triangle. So he goes from that to now he is now a lackey for Dean Ambrose? You can't make that make sense. You would think that would be a feud, right? Penta and Rey Fenix versus the BBC and Pac. But where is the feud? You can't just plug PacMan into the goddamn BBC. That is weird. That makes no sense. Once again, you think we are dummies. You think we are not going to fucking notice it? Like, wow, that's what I mean. Another storyline with no explanation. Why is PacMan with the BBC? So, after 4 years, we are supposed to forget about the Death Triangle. There is no breakup. I find that very, very odd. So, reason number 4. What happened to the Elite EVP feud? What happened to that story? I thought those guys were going to take over All Elite Fake Pro Wrestling. Like, bro, Jack Perry attacked Tony Khan Man. And how come he was not suspended? That makes no fucking sense. Hold on, so you want to suspend Jack Perry for fighting CM Punk, but he attacked you, the boss. So wait a minute. You fire CM Punk because he tried to attack you, and you want to suspend Jack Perry for fighting CM Punk. But on TV, Jack Perry attacked you and you did nothing, you did not suspend him, you can't make that make sense. But I thought this group was going to be the NWO. I thought they were going to be DX. I thought they were going to take over this whole entire show. And dude, we barely see the EVPs together. It feels like Jack Perry is really by himself right now. He's the one who is carrying this faction. Okada has done nothing. That guy is a fucking joke. He's too busy jerking off to Sasha Banks. He's too busy becoming a goddamn incel. Listen, when it comes to Okada, he's too busy becoming a goddamn. Okay. Listen, Okada is too busy jerking off to Sasha Banks, and he is too busy trying to be a goddamn incel for Sasha Banks. Okay, Okada has been a fucking joke in all elite fake pro wrestling. Like I said, you gotta put some respect on Jack Perry's name. He's the only reason why the Bucks and Okada are goddamn relevant right now as we speak. It's all about Jack Perry. Jack Perry, he is on a run of a lifetime. It is so strange how the first 2 weeks of the EVP Elites, right? They were trying to take over the show. But since then, we have not seen them. Okay, that's called no explanation. I thought those guys were going to use their power to take over the goddamn brand, and they didn't. Con-Man has dropped the ball on that storyline, which means there is no explanation on why those guys are not trying to take over the show like they promised. So, reason number 3. Let's talk about Marina Shafir. Okay, this makes no sense. Why is she in the BBC? Why is she with Dean Ambrose? Last time I checked, I thought you was married to Roddy Strong, right? She's married to Roddy Strong. Last time we seen them, they were on TV. So this makes no sense. The crowd knows you are married to Mr. Strong. You are his wife. You should be with Roddy Strong. You should be in the Undisputed Kingdom. So she feels like she's better off with Dean Ambrose and not your real life husband. The crowd knows you are married to Roddy Strong. So this pairing, it just makes no sense. Where is the explanation? To me, that is very, very odd that she is now the bodyguard for another man who is not her husband. Let's move on to number 2 on this list. And that is the Men of the Year with Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky and Dan Lambert. What happened to that tag team? They just broke up with no explanation. The last time we saw Page on All Elite Fake Pro Wrestling TV, he was by himself with no Lambert and no Sky. That was fucking odd. I'm like, hold on. What happened to that tag team? That was a very good tag team. You gotta give us an explanation on why he's no longer with Dan Lambert and Sky. What the fuck happened? You see, that's what I don't like about Con-Man. You can't give a tag team a push on TV every goddamn week, and then months later, they break up with no story and no explanation. And you think that your fan base are fucking idiots. That's what I don't like. Now, let's move on to the last number on this list. And that is Big Cass with Chris Jericho. I talk about this all the time. Why is Big Cass with Chris Jericho? When you were tag team champions with Starks last year, and last year, you were in a feud with that same Chris Jericho and Sammy G. It was you and Starks versus Jericho and Sammy G. Okay, that was a feud last year. And now, this year, you are homeboys with Chris Jericho with no explanation. Can you please give us a reason on why you are not with Starks? That's called no explanation. You were tag team champions for a long time with Starks, and now you are the fucking lackey of Chris Jericho, that same Jericho who you fought last year. So Big Cass, he goes from being a badass with Starks, he goes from that to now he's with Chris Jericho. Yeah, that makes no sense, because now Big Cass is a dumb jock. Right now, Big Cass is the dumb lackey. And it's like, bro, That man is a goddamn giant. Why is he a dumb jock lackey that is kissing the ass of Chris Jericho every goddamn week? And I don't like this. This is burying Big Cass. So that is my whole entire list of times where Tony Khan, man, gives you no explanation for his dumb booking.